A man divided. A man that has multiple sides of himself. A man that he himself dubs the most powerful being in existence. There's a character in particular that has a lot of impressive feats, and he doesn't necessarily have the most comic appearances. It's this being known as a Sentry. He has less than 500 comic appearances. But yet somehow he managed to make a name for himself by battling all the major powerhouses in Marvel, gods, and etc., even splattering certain deities. And he just so happens to have a dark side you do not want to mess with. Oh boy, I hope you guys enjoy the Sentry. Can we get rid of this idea that just because a character has a symbol or a cape on them and can fly and get energy from the sun that they're a knockoff of Superman? I mean, because when you deep dive into the Sentry's lore, he's a lot more complex than just simply calling him another Superman knockoff. I mean, honestly, when you start deep diving into the lore, he's really a lot more closer resembling a version of the Hulk, if we're being honest, but the Hulk that can fly and absorb solar energy and stuff. Like in his lore, they say solar energy. Yep. So that's probably why people try to say he's similar to Superman. But I mean, there's even times Marvel Comics themselves even use the term Superman, a golden deity superhero, but definitely Superman in the vaguest sense. You can kind of say Sentry is similar to Gladiator and the Hulk because, like, it's even stated in his handbook, his power depends on his mental state. Stated in comics like this, his mental force holding his powers together. It's talk about how the Sentry's power goes up and down via his emotions. There's even times where he says he will become powerless because of his mental state. You can even say he's learned more about himself over the years. It was believed he needed consistent doses of this drug to be mighty. It was then found out that that was just merely saline. It wasn't actually the serum. So it lets you know that it was all in his head, thinking he needed to constantly take that stuff when he was just boosting himself without really needing it really. He literally has like conflicts with himself, the other side of himself, known as the Void, where he would physically literally fight another aspect of himself. See, here's the thing about Marvel. Like, you probably remember that Marvel has a bunch of super soldiers. You guys know, like, humans gotta always be experimented on scientific stuff, this thing known as the super soldier serum. And they bring up the most famous being Captain America, so they embark to make another one to recreate and improve the serum to 100,000 times its original strength. It was apparently this thing known as Project Sentry. But see, here's like the big problem here. This kind of stuff isn't supposed to be taken by some random person with mental health issues, a diagnosed schizophrenic with generalized anxiety disorder, an addict. See, he was the type of guy to where he was addicted to drugs, a junkie. He kept on taking this stuff without knowing what it is. And that's part of the reason why he became this being known as the Sentry. And you thinking it's over, but he says, can I get more of this druggy stuff, serum stuff? He was addicted to the power. But the longer you see throughout this video, you're going to learn that this formula has to be more than just 100,000 times more the power of a super soldier based on the stuff you're going to see him do. Like something you're going to constantly see me bring up over and over again about him having the power of 1 million exploding suns. I'm pretty sure 100,000 times the power of the super soldier serum is not the power of 1 million exploding suns. Sentry is essentially one of those characters that can do pretty much every major power you can think of because of this stuff he ingested. Like, he legit has different forms. Him and the Void itself is merged, like his other self that he be battling with. When these personalities are merged, this is how he looks sometimes. Think of the personality of the Sentry, Robert, and think of the Void all being like aspects of himself. Think of like all of them are just him. Like, you could almost look at them like avatars, and he can even fuse with them at times and become whole, or they can exist separately. This picture is a good representation of what I'm talking about. These two are basically avatars of Robert. Still him though, but they can physically manifest. You see what I mean? He has different modes. I mean, there was this time he was merged with Silver Surfer. Yeah, it's a little creepy. Sentry had a form that was possessed by a whole bunch of freaking ghosts, dubbed Revenant Prime. That's a lot of ghosts. Whew. Like, when they deep dive into Sentry's lore on the why he's so mighty, they talk about how the serum creates a phase-shifting effect in the molecules of your body, causing each atom to step an instant ahead of the current timeline. The serum induces a photosynthetic reaction, creating a hyper state of consciousness. But let's analyze this monster. Of course, he has amazing strength to be able to lift up vehicles like cars, muscle to stop jets more than once. These subway train cars were about to collide and his muscle can stop it. Monsters that are strong enough to restrain powerhouses like Ms. Marvel, we see him rip this kind of stuff in half. Big vault doors like this, he can just, move. Starting off with a bang when it comes to his raw muscle, things that weigh hundreds, even thousands of tons like helicarriers. We know he can support this kind of weight with his strength. This basically proves he can lift buildings over hundreds of thousands of tons if he needed to, based on the size of this helicarrier, thanks to his raw strength. And more proof he can lift hundreds of thousands of tons, or at least half of 100,000 tons, like cruise ships. They can obviously vary in weight, but yet he can move this kind of weight. He has the raw brute strength where symbiote type characters like Carnage literally get ripped in half. So all these symbiotes thought they can outnumber him and beat him with numbers. That's not how that works. Y'all are just too far below him in power level. He just pushes all you off of him. Just Spider-Man tiers in general, Sentry has the power to rip their arms off. So even statements saying he could do that to Spider-Man himself. Or he could murk Captain America. Like, we know Sentry is as strong as his emotions will let him, or his mental state will let him. Kind of similar to characters like Gladiator and even the Hulk. You know, Gladiator is based on confidence. Hulk's based on anger. Sentry is based on his stability. His higher ends of stability or strength or whatever has to be in the Hulkish-ish type range. There was this time where the Hulk, where I quote, was quoted to never have been angrier. During the World War Hulk event, he was super mad. You know, the Hulk's strength is about his anger and stuff. And we've seen the Sentry's muscles literally clash with a Hulk this angry. Not at his peak anger, but still high enough. Higher than usual, I would say. We've seen Sentry, even in events after that, we see his muscles clash with the Hulk's and muscles. So yeah, the stuff the Hulk has lifted, like 150 billion ton mountains. We've seen Hulk-like beings literally condense cores of stars. Hulk himself at lesser raised level state, he can juggle any of the planets in our solar system, even the larger ones. Sentry matching this same being's muscles. Sentry should also be able to lift planets or move planets or juggle them. Planets like Jupiter, planets way larger than Earth by a mile. I mean, you literally see their muscles clashing. The same Hulk that can support the weight of a star, but yet even with the weight of a star on his back, the Hulk won't go flat on his face. This would imply Sentry can lift even larger stuff like big structures like stars. So if he has similar muscle to Hulkish type beings with his muscle to be able to support the weight of any planet in our solar system, basically, what do you think his punches would feel like? You see what I mean? They would have to be somewhere in his ballpark by default without even counting his speed and stuff. Flying with energy and punching power, everything put together, we know he can easily level multiple buildings. Based on all the strength I've showed you, is it really a shock that we see him tackle beings and they make craters in the ground? In this particular situation, he actually flew and messed up the city of Asgard by flying with this kind of power, basically proving he can hit harder than nuclear bombs. I mean, this kind of stuff is reiterated. Asgard is down. So it's no doubt he can ram into you with super speed and hit harder than nukes. This Asgard that Sentry did this to was apparently the size of Brooklyn, just to give you a visual on how big we're talking. Just to give an example of the weight behind his hits, like he doesn't need to fly to punch hard. He can make gases and ice and stuff just from just punching without flying with momentum. That kind of remind you of some bottomless pit type stuff. I mean, we even see him punch with so much weight. The shockwave of his punch can be felt by others, even if they're not necessarily right next to his punch. He can punch hard with just super strength punches or just flying with speed and stuff. Like either or, that, you know, he can fly and punch with energy and stuff. So it's basically proven he can punch hard enough or strike hard enough to destroy planetoids like the freaking moon. So it's literally visually shown when it comes to planetoids like the moon, he can literally split or destroy this kind of stuff with the weight of his hits. You're probably thinking this doesn't mean anything because planetoids like moons are nothing compared to the size of the Earth. Well, there's also implications, stuff like the Earth he could delete. Invisible Woman made a force field or shield around an entire planet. The weight of the Sentry's hits was so crazy. When Invisible Woman was shielding from it, he was shaking the planet to its core from the weight of his punches, saying she can't keep him out much longer. Yeah, he's capable of planet-shaking type punches. In this occasion, he punched Thor so hard the impact could be felt around the world. It's literally confirmed that Sentry can hit hard enough to literally shred entire worlds. They stated it clear right there. It's even talked about when Sentry's about to fight other beings that they could jeopardize the planet with them fighting. We've seen him clash against beings like this Cosmic X, for example, like one of the Heralds of Galactic Terex, for example, out-muscling him with a laughable ease, even breaking his axe. This same Terex and his axe can cleave through planets. So Sentry can cleave planets in half, you know? Because it's literally talked about of how he could have obliterated the planet 100 times over, implying earth-shattering might isn't really a big deal to him, and it's effortless. I mean, think about his lore. We're talking about a character where there's a big part of his lore where I already mentioned this, but I'm mentioning it again. It's a big part of his lore to quote-unquote have the power of 1,000 exploding suns. No, not just 1,000, but it's more consistently dubbed the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. Stated again here, 1,000,000 suns. And they literally said 1,000,000 exploding suns, like supernova explosions, To say this isn't true is ridiculous. You're basically denying his writer intent and lore. He's supposed to be able to do this. That's a big part of his character. This kind of stuff was even stated in the World War Hulk comic when he was one of the rare people that could take on the Hulk. A man with the power of 1 million exploding suns. There's even certain occasions they say 1 billion exploding suns. Like, I'm pretty sure this is a part of his lore. They stated here, melts with the power of 1 million exploding suns. He can use this exploding sun power output outwardly when he fights beings in a concentrated energy blast type thing. He can use the same energy for shielding and stuff. 1 million exploding suns. 1 million exploding suns. He reminds gods like Hercules of the 1 million exploding sun power. You'd have to be hard-headed not to believe all these statements. They're actually shoving it down your throat an absurd amount of times. Comics that literally released in 2024 even say the power of 1 million exploding suns, guys. There's no way he can't do this. I want you guys to really deep dive on what this is saying about Sentry. Just think about this for a second. One sun exploding in real life, apparently, based on the distance between the planets in our solar system, the distance between the Earth and like the sun or whatever, if the sun was to explode, it will apparently create a blast that would blast all the way past Mars and incinerate the Earth and mess up like a big chunk of our solar system. He's got the kind of power that will be equivalent to enough to wipe out a big chunk of the solar system, meaning he could easily destroy the largest planets in our solar system. Like that would pretty much mean he's laughably above Earth-shattering levels. He can destroy even bigger planets than this. I mean, think about how big the sun is compared to Jupiter, and Sentry has the power of one of these exploding. Multiplied by 1 million. You might as well just say he has the raw blast power to just wipe out the entire solar system. If one sun exploding can pretty much mess up half the solar system with the radius or blast radius, multiply this by 1 million, yeah, the solar system's doomed. But believe me when I say this, it actually gets more impressive. See, we know how physics works in real life, right? But it seems like Marvel's physics might be a little bit more exaggerated or a little bit different than what we're used to, because there's been plenty of times where the suns have exploded in Marvel, and the sun exploding was actually scarier. The power of 1,000 blazing suns is apparently enough to destroy an entire galaxy in Marvel. So this will not only make Sentry be able to destroy a solar system, but literally millions of solar systems. If 1,000 sun explosions can mess up a galaxy, what do you think 1 million can do? Sentry's 1 million. Keep in mind, galaxy shattering power is enough to shatter billions of solar systems, guys. Like, yeah, this is a lot of space. I mean, it's even stated here, when a star goes nova and obliterates the solar systems with an S, one star can mess up solar systems in this universe. This implies that Sentry is not just galaxy shattering, but he can mess up more than one galaxy, if we're being honest. If 1,000 suns exploding can destroy an entire galaxy, Sentry can do that and more. There's even some evidence to suggest he's even higher, and that the 1 million exploding thing is just a pun for his power, but that doesn't mean that's necessarily his limit. Like, we see him face off against some of the mightiest powerhouses in Marvel, durability and just strength-wise, like the Thing, underrated powerhouse. Depending on his mental state, we've literally seen him battle gods like Ares, and even see him do ridiculous stuff like ripping him in half. Iron Man's somebody that you probably don't respect, but yeah, we've seen Sentry actually mess up a Hulkbuster armor, breaking all of Hulk's bones when the Void was taken over. We've even seen him at times grab Thor, make Thor bleed, and pretty much manhandle Thor with raw power. Just a quick friendly reminder on what Thor tiers can do when it comes to how hard these beings can hit, the stuff they can endure. They can hit with power that erupts simultaneously across all planes of reality, and even have force similar to the Big Bang. Like, this kind of stuff Thor characters can do. Have shockwaves that stretch across the entire universe, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we're talking about the kind of power that can quake the universe. In this state, it seems like he had a lot more raw punching power than Thor in this particular situation. You know, base Thor, blasting Thor, making him drowsy after a hit. So all this cracking space and time stuff I've already went through, just imagine that magnified in Death Seed Sentry when it comes to how hard he can punch or hit. But let me get off this. He's powerful without this. And if you think this is BS, well, think about it. The creator of the Sentry, Paul Jenkins, fans actually be asking people questions. They asked this guy if the Sentry can destroy the universe. He pretty much answered yes, he's too powerful to exist, apparently. This wouldn't really contradict nothing, because this is something a lot of Marvel powerhouses can do. I mean, these beings have to face some very powerful beings. It kind of adds up with his lore, really. In Raw Power, they even compare or talk about how the Sentry's up there in the same ballpark with Thor. Smart beings were like Reed Richards called Sentry the Hulk. And they put them in the same category with Phoenix and crap. Like, the Sentry is in the same sentence with the Phoenix along with the Hulk. Like, that's kind of crazy. Calling them Omega level threats. I mean, even in newer comics, Reed Richards says Sentry is one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Multiple powerhouses, like I'm talking about on some team busting type stuff, multiple of these powerhouses have trouble restraining him. Insanely strong powerhouses like Beta Ray Bill, we see him punch, make him drip blood really badly to the point I'm almost starting to feel bad for Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill has gotten in fights to where they've literally, during their fight, shook the heavens and shook the firmament of the universe. Like this kind of stuff, Beta Ray Bill is a Thor Sentry being, shaking the universe. It's kind of like common at this point. It's easy to say this stuff is an exaggeration. When you got statements like this saying his powers are limitless, there's nothing you cannot do. They call him omnipotent immortal. Sentry is one of the rare people during this saga that could box it out with World War Hulk when everybody else in this arc was pretty much getting handled. Imagine this junk animated. You even see Hulk and Sentry go back to their humanish modes. This is one of those things that happened off screen, so take this as you will. He apparently boxed it up with Galactus to a standstill, apparently. Galactus is a cosmic being, higher dimensional being, depending on how fed he is. Yeah. There's even comics where they compare his power to Scarlet Witch, and they say, did you read about what Scarlet Witch and what happened to her? That was nothing in comparison to this situation with the Sentry. Oh man. Molecule Man, somebody that literally is powerful enough to fist fight it with a nigh omnipotent being like the Beyonder. I'm talking about a cosmic being. I'm talking about beings that can have multiversal tremors. Like these two can fight. Molecule Man can fight beings this powerful. Whether we're talking about retcon, after retcon, he's always matching Beyonder. And the fact that the Molecule Man can pretty much do anything he wants because everything got molecules in it. The fact he says Sentry's unique and he's never tasted anything like him. That says a lot about the Sentry's might. I love how brand new comics in 2024 even bring up the fact he's fought Molecule Man and damaged him. They even say, you're everything. You're bigger than God. You could go everywhere, do anything. The power of the universe is yours and more. I mean, the Sentry is strong when Doctor Strange, you know how powerful Doctor Strange is. Him and Clea, his sweetie, had to literally merge into one being, fusion technique style, to take on this Sentry. That's not even the real Sentry. It's a Sentry's corpse that's possessed by 100 million insane ghosts. He was this powerful still to where Strange and his sweetie had to fuse to take on this being. Even if you try to beat him in a haxy way, like trapping him in another dimension like the Negative Zone, he can tear open his own rift between the different universes like the Negative Zone and the normal Marvel universe. He can tear through it, through the dimensional rift with his raw power, just physically ripping through. Look at all this stuff. Yeah, they literally talk about how he was able to tear that crack into an entire rift with his bare hands. The Sentry can literally tear 2 dimensions with him. He was able to produce so much energy that, yeah, don't ask, he'd be tearing away from his own self. Yeah, the void and crap. He separated from the void, resulting in an explosion that tore a hole in space itself. All this universe-ish dimensional rift shifting, splitting type stuff, it starts to add up, right? I mentioned this earlier, but as crazy as it may seem, the void, he's technically a part of him still, but when you accept him, that's realistically when Sentry can access his true self, being merged with himself. Not fighting against himself, but just submit straight up. When he fuses with himself, that's when he can achieve his ultimate power. Like it's the same stuff you're used to. He's constantly able to fight Thor, but like this, he can definitely make Thor feel his punches. Matches the strike of the Mjolnir with just his fist. He can do all that universe shaking or destruction type stuff I've already mentioned earlier, but one could argue much greater since he's the merged Sentry. He's accepting all of the sides of himself. I mean, there was literally a symbiote-controlled celestial head, like you see him fly through it during this event with Noel. I mean, he's doing all the stuff the Void would usually do, like controlling tendrils, like he's constantly fighting like Powerhouse, like a powered up She-Hulk, for example. Powerhouses like Nova. More proof of being able to destroy universe type stuff. Like think about a hand, right? Think about a planet being so small it can fit in your hand. Like I'm talking about subatomic size to where you can't even see it with the naked eye as normal sized humans. Imagine being subatomic size, boxing it up with a powerful being, like in this occasion Guinness Veil. They're literally in a microverse, like a subatomic universe, super small, invisible to eyesight. A subatomic dimension that exists within and between the folds of all matter. Despite being in a subatomic universe, subatomic size, beings in the real normal size can feel it despite them being this small. He's clashing with beings like that, has to withstand this kind of stuff. This kind of stuff implies more universe-shattering stuff, you know. Just in case you don't understand what I'm talking about, like, I'm talking about being subatomic size, but your weight of your hits or blasts are so powerful. It reaches out of that subatomic universe itself to reach the real world, to affect the real world. The normal sized world. That's how much weight Sentry's hits are for it to affect the real world being this small. When you're this small but can affect the normal sized world, that's some universe shattering type stuff. 2024 comics that released talk about that Sentry is a man that possessed the strength to tear reality asunder. Does this to Dr. Doom's armor? Sorry, Morgan Le Fay, no head for you. He's very versatile. I mean, on top of the regular stuff he doesn't have to do. He doesn't have to shower, shave, eat, or sleep. He gives off this calming aura that calms down down the Hulk. One of the Hulk's main powers is staying mad and getting stronger. It's kind of hard to do that with Sentry. He can kind of calm the Hulk down via hacks, thanks to his special aura, and this aura's calming effect. If you made it this far in the video, you know he's an energy manipulator, but yeah, he can absorb energy, draw energy from anywhere and everywhere, can do some molecule or matter manipulation, reality warping stuff like transmuting different things. He can manipulate energy to make his own vortexes. He can charge Iron Man's armor, similar to how Thor be doing. Due to his light manipulation, he can technically manipulate light to the point where he can basically be invisible by deflecting light. This is kind of proof that he be evolving over the time period because he learned he can control molecules during his fight with Molecule Man. He never knew he could do that before this event. I mean, when you got all these kind of powers, there's no wonder you can make your own clothes or materialize the clothes out of thin air. Talking about an easy suit up, he has telepathy too. That's why he's able to find out Spider-Man's identity. He telepathically puts his memories in somebody else's head to write a comic book series based on his life. So yeah, he has telepathy. Certain occasions seems to teleport away, can heal beings and resurrect. Sentry, it's talked about how he can literally warp reality in his presence. That's why in this particular situation, you see like all these creatures pop up, because he has some form of reality warping. They go as far as saying he could completely rewrite the history books via reality warping, apparently. I mean, he can control, manipulate, one could say create his own little pocket universe or dimension. This is one of the many times he's having like a mental crisis with himself, talking to different aspects of himself. Notice how this black space, it's kind of like darkness or dimension manipulation or something, where he can kind of take them out of that little void. Sentry might have one of the best regenerative healing factors because he's been blasted into pieces and we see him reform. I'm talking about being blasted into pieces by beings like Molecule Man. He can regenerate. I mean, I know he was Death Seed right here, but he probably could do this in his base state. He said he has regrown from an atom before. Even if his head is blown up, he would just get back up better than ever. Magically blown up, and he's back. Part of the reason why it could be hard to murk him is because he can literally devour souls, steal human souls. This suggests weather manipulation. I mean, what do you call it? I mean, shoot, this looks like lightning manipulation. To me, what's up with all these sparks? Telekinesis. Iron Man is pretty top tier. Like, he has suits that can react in microseconds, can hit at 3,500 feet per second. Sentry can fight faster, and he's outspeeding Iron Man in combat. In raw speed, this particular suit for Iron Man can go at least Mach 8 times the speed of sound at the very least, and Sentry was able to walk down this same suit in raw speed. And of course, he has raw speed. He can fly from the Earth to the moon ridiculously fast. When he's literally merged Sentry, they talk about his raw speed, talking about he sped at us at near light speed. He can move in a straight line, and he's precise with it. Like this gun being this close to this guy's head, the gun being ridiculously close, and he still was able to catch it. This would give an example of combat speed. There's clear examples of him being able to go way faster than the speed of light. Look at these panels on how he's passing literal planets, and it seems no time. You see him on Earth literally take off, get all the way to Saturn in an extremely short amount of time. This would imply speeds way faster than light. I'm talking about over hundreds of times faster than the speed of light. And you guys know how far away the sun is compared to the Earth. He can fly from the Earth to the sun in extremely short amounts of time. Here's like different occasions of him doing the same when it comes to raw speed, flying all the way up to the sun in an extremely short amount of time. Like right here, you literally see him passing planets in the solar system with raw point A to point B type speed. So he's way faster than the speed of light. So just imagine him flying into you at over 900 times faster than light or faster, you know? So if you made it this far in the video, can you really blame the fact that he's dubbed as one of the most powerful heroes the world has ever seen? All because he's very similar to the Hulk with messed up mind issues. He manifests in dark sides of himself. I mean, that awkward moment when the Silver Surfer and Sentry, or him and Bob, do the fusion technique and become one. Yeah, Sentry's supremely powerful. They keep on killing him off and then bringing him back to life. In newer comics, there's like this little Sentry legacy thing where like a whole bunch of different beings had like a piece of Sentry's power, kind of like Shazam or something. His power just spread out to different beings, and one guy wanted all of the Sentry's powers for himself so he can continue the Sentry's legacy. Stated here, so he can just become like the full-blown Sentry. But I will admit, I'm kind of ready for the real Sentry to come back. Even though this concept is kind of cool and these outfits look pretty cool with these different designs, there's nothing like the original. How do you think the merged Sentry would do against a full-powered Thor that has the full-powered Odin force? Man, that fight between them two would shake multiple dimensions, universes, realities to their very core, if we're being honest. How strong do you think the Sentry is? Did you learn something new? Is Sentry overpowered? What power doesn't he have? Like, share, subscribe for me real quick, and thanks for the donations, y'all. Sentry. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.